out of your way?
Yep.
Everybody was complaining that somebody had taken their sign, or somebody had taken their sign. So joking around before I walked out the door, my husband goes, "Oh my God, somebody took our sign." And I went, "What?" And he's like, "Sit down." I'm just joking. Yeah, don't take my sign. I told my husband, I'm like, we have cameras, so it's, you know what I mean? For me, it's not as big because we'll see what's happening. I'm like, in broad daylight, it was just there. My only concern is I don't really think a lot of our neighbors understand. Because we live in a neighborhood with a lot of retirees, and I just don't think they understand like the full scope of it. I was the one on today that said something about a flyer, created a flyer, and people can print it out in their home. And I mean, I wouldn't mind going around and dropping them off. You know what I mean? And everybody's just door handle or whatever. You know, we walk around as it is. It's not letting me buy anything.
I'm good. I'll let somebody else make this. Thank you. No, they posted them. Did you wanted that lady after we wanted that one seat? I know you wanted. I'll stay here because I was somebody else beside me. that one's a crown. Here's the crown. Here's the crown.
Oh, okay.
And then it goes out.
Oh, that's the one I follow.
Yeah. It's still weird. Oh, these people might be moving. Oh no, they're just going to the bathroom or something. Oh yeah.
14, 12, and almost 8. Probably here a while.
I can sit here and she's here. I'm gonna sit here until they start.
50 years.
I'm sitting until they start. Actually, 15 July this year.
15 years.
15 years yesterday.
That's what my
Your mommy famous now.
What's that?
Your mommy famous.
Well, my baby girl sees me on TV, so
Nice.
she's videos of me.
Nice.
Turn the air up a little bit.
Because I had those
Turn the air up. It's, you don't want to sit back here. There's like no air at all.
Well, I'm sure they did it
And
right,
you stay back.
but it's still taking capacity.
should have been advertising it.
No, he's here. He's here.
Cities.
When you know people, so you gotta know people. Look at you. See you at the reunion. There's one seat open over there. Did you want to sit? The seat open. Do you want me to sit here? You sit there. One of us can go. No, I'll take it. I might just sit here. I don't want Steve to think I can stay for 2 hours. Council people must be happy sitting up there. Council people must not be going to be able to sit up Okay, guess I wasn't sure what that was. Guess I wasn't sure what that was. And it just because that one cop looks a little like Joey French. Look at his, when he does his speaking over there.
Right now, that's pretty good.
How many turns?
It was over 300.
The cop looks a little like Joey French when he turns.
Oh, yeah.
My phone's off.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to take the time to welcome everybody here in this room. Also welcome those that are in the overflow room in the police department, and also those that might be listening online or pick this up on YouTube when we're done here. So obviously there was a lot of questions about the ordinance that was passed in Walmart. I thought it was very, very necessary, and my administration and everybody else has said, we got to call a meeting, we got to talk to our homeowners, we got to talk to our folks. So that's what kind of got this rolling and got this going. So it was important that, for me, that we needed to do that. First and foremost, I've been on this job for 6 months. I inherited this. It's not something I do nothing about up to this point, other than when I was on council and we had to self-disclose to the EPA. So with that being said, me having a police background, I really like to dive into the facts and know what's going on. And I've been very diligent about this the last 6 months about it. I know more about sewers than I ever knew in my entire life. But it was important that I learn that and I get the facts together, because I drive on facts. That's been my career the whole time. I don't drive on emotion. I drive on facts. So I need to get those together in order to make decent decisions. Also saw the meeting last night at the Elks, and it was, I thought, fruitful with some of the questions that were given to us and how we can help answer. I also, in listening to the whole thing, heard a lot of misinformation that was passed along, and it probably is resonating into our community, and we'll try to clear that up today with factual type of things. So what we want to do today is fourfold, actually 5. First, I'd like to start out very briefly and have Mr. Birch give a history of how sewers kind of evolved in our city, the materials that were used, the years, and because it's important as we kind of build on that moving forward. Secondly, I'm going to explain to you why the ordinance. I think that's important. Why this has become to fruition. And then third, we'd like to explain the whole inspection process, the whole engineering process about what's in somebody's house, what it's doing, to try to educate you with that, because we're getting a lot of questions about that. And then fourth is, how can we be available to help? And we have been quite a few times already this past couple weeks when people have called, but I want to make sure that we're there for people to have something to bounce off and get information. And then the last thing I want to do is, we were given a list of questions from last night's meeting that I think is going to cover a lot of what you want answered. If it's not, then we'll ask for sure. And try to wrap that up in an hour and a half or so. I don't want this to go long. I want it to be efficient. I want it to be fast. And I don't want it to drag on. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Mr. Birch on the history side.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Close enough. I apologize. I'll start up front here. And thank you for coming tonight. And I think it's prudent to kind of get into how we got here in terms of historically and what sewer systems. Now, many of you already know these answers, and I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But essentially, many of the houses in Malmö were built earlier than 1965. Many of them before sewer plants were a thing. Essentially, the Malmö River, like many other rivers in the country, were sewers, open sewers. And in the 1930s, the city of Toledo built their first plant, which is where our stuff went. We started creating sewers.
I'm sorry, the live stream people are texting me and saying they can't hear you.
Okay, I will talk it. Thank you. Back in 1930, they started building sewer plants. The city of Malmö in the 40s had sewers before that, but they went directly to the river, to a cesspool in their backyard or in the front yard. So most of that stuff either went to the river or was in people's yards. Then we built what they call interceptor sewers. Many of them know where those are. Those are on the river. And they take them to the pump stations. Many of you on East Harrison know that there's an Elizabeth Street pump station that we just finished. That transfers sewage to the Key Street area. And then shortly after that, we switched our sewer from going to Toledo to going to the county plant in the 70s. So we flipped it around, put more pump stations in, and the sewage was sent there. Unfortunately, in the well, not unfortunately, but the Clean Water Act passed in 1972. It took the federal EPA a little while to catch up, but in the 80s, had this do in a community I was in before when I was a young city manager, and we had to separate sewers, much the same as Maumee did. Many of you have been here, went through that, you've seen those sewers get separated. The city spent millions of dollars at that time separating those sewers. Maumee, I've heard people say that we have CSOs, that is a combined sewer flow. Maumee has separated sewers. Unfortunately, we also have regulators. Regulators tie those storm sewers and the sanitary sewers back together at the river for an overflow, for a relief valve, so that we don't flood basements. In 1984, we signed an agreement with the EPA that gave us the ability to dump 25 million gallons of sewage into the river. They also said that you will have so many years to separate your sewers. Put storm sewers in, put sanitary sewers, but you can't have the sewer in your sump pumps, you can't have the sewers in your crawl spaces, or in your footer drains, or in your streets, going the same as where your sanitary or toilet flushes into. So that we had to do. We did do that, but in 1996, we told the EPA we were done. And we were done, but we didn't tell them is that it didn't fix the problem. And at that time, we were dumping even more sewage into the river, even though we had separated our sewers. Because as you build, and as people realize they have basement problems, they install sump pumps. And they pump that into the sanitary system. The sanitary system gets overloaded, and then it has to discharge at some point. We had regulators that had weir gates in them. Weir gate is just a brick wall or a piece of metal that gets into a pipe. When the water gets so high, it goes over that weir, like a dam, and goes into the river. Many of you have seen some of those outfalls. We have a number of them here. When I first came here, within 2 weeks, my finance director came to me and said that, do you want to know if I knew of any reason why the city got a $400,000 water or sewer bill, larger than we had the quarter before. I immediately became suspect of that. I thought, oh no. Obviously, when you see wild fluctuations in that after you've had storm events the last 3 months, that usually put an indication that your stormwater is inflowing your sanitary system. When I first came here, we're separated, no problem. Well, it didn't take 2 weeks before I started talking to employees in our departments and realizing we had 9 pumps. Many of you have seen those pumps out, 6-inch to 2-inch trash pumps, mostly out in the Ogons area and off of 7th. Many of you, I don't know if anybody knew this here, but those pumps are supposed to be used to pump sewage into a storm sewer to discharge to the river. And we got away with that for a long time. But when I found it out, I went to the mayor, Rich Carr, with the council, that's what Mayor McDonald was talking about, and I said, we got a problem. Dumping sewage into the river is a 20-year federal felony, and that started a criminal investigation, which is still ongoing, BCI and the federal government. We reported ourselves to the EPA. That's what got the criminal investigation going. So we try to do the right thing to get the city gets criminally investigated. We don't know where that's going. We have not been told. We know that they came and took records, overtime records, people who issued overtime to do those things. And we signed findings and orders. They basically told us that you got 15 years to fix this and you can no longer dump anything. Anybody knows anything about sewer, if there's any sewer person in the audience knows, that in a system like this, it's almost impossible in every rain event not to discharge, especially in a system like ours. So here we are. We get a findings and orders. That findings and orders from the director of the EPA kicked in a lot of things. And one of those things was we had to go through a process, and Mayor McDonald's going to go through those steps in a minute, but we had to go through steps about hiring a consultant. That contract was nearly $850,000 for Stantec. That did not include the EPA giving us $450,000 in flow meters. These are big flow meters that go in outfalls. We had to lease another $450,000 of those same product so that we can move them around town. And lo and behold, they gave us 3 years to finish what they call an SSES report. That will be submitted in a couple weeks. We're still revising it, crunching that data. But we had to do a CMON plan and stuff that Jim will go through. Those were set 3.5 years ago almost 3.5 years ago, we started negotiating with the EPA about what this would look like. My first concern with them is that I sent the letter, and I asked him, I said, so if it's a felony to discharge and you're trying to fix it, pretty quickly, I got a Zoom call with 3 states attorney generals, the EPA, the federal EPA, telling us, you can't break the law. I said, well, we have to don't, because I can't fix it overnight. Nobody can. And that would cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's no way that could be absorbed here. It's just not possible. So we went through the process of negotiating what that would be. Well, here we are. 3 years later, we've been putting out videos and doing those kind of things to try to get people to do those, but people don't voluntarily spend money. We understand that. It's really difficult to get people to do that, especially on things that aren't sexy, like something underground. We all understand that. So we went through the process of, all the way through the process of testing. We know where the water is coming from, and lo and behold, part of the problem we found was that we thought that hopefully what they call, Jim will go through, is infill and infiltration into pipes. We thought it would be maybe 20% residential properties, and we'd find all these big parking lots that were tied. We didn't. We found the flip opposite. Years ago, as a young manager, we did the same thing. We replaced all the sewers in the street with plastic. We did the leads up to the right-of-way line, and it literally made no difference because they didn't do footer drains, sump pumps, because that was a principal point source contact for these problems. Is that the history you want to go through, and you're going to start from there? I think you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so just to continue with a little bit of backstory, as a result of self-reporting the violation, the state issued a director's findings and orders, which is what we are under right now. It's absolute. You have to do exactly what they're telling you to do, or the consequences are great. If you don't, then the next step is even harsher. And it's even worse if you get a federal judge to do some sort of mandate on you that is impossible to reach, and the burden that it would put on our citizens. So in very quick language, in a summary, what it said was, take all feasible steps to stop sanitary sewer overflows and water in basements, and eliminate the impact of those SSOs and WIBs from the sewer system. And that includes excessive I&I. I&I is what you're going to hear that referred to as inflow and infiltration. That's where this is going to come in, as to what is inflow and what is infiltration. And Dr. Birch will explain that to you as to why they're telling us, stop it. And stop it as quickly as you can. So I'm caught in the middle between the EPA saying, stop it and stop it now, and a community that's saying, we don't want this. We can't do this. And so can't swing it, we can't afford it, whatever. It's not a feasible thing. Quite frankly, they don't care. I'm telling you, they don't care. So, as a result of self-reporting the violation, the state issued a director's of findings and orders, requiring the city of Maumee to stop illegally discharging sewage into the Maumee. So, they required us in the findings orders to do a number of things. One was to schedule for conducting a sewer evaluation study. We did that back in 22. That's completed. There was a public notification plan that was required that informs the public of all sanitary overflow locations, signs, postings, and so forth. We did that. And that is ongoing as we know of locations. We also had to come up with an emergency response plan and submit that develops procedures for emergency response to surcharge events. Surcharge is when the system fills up. Okay? So there's also a capacity management operation and maintenance program. That's a complete ongoing thing, which is what we're doing with relining our own sewers uptown, wherever we can get into the ground. We've got to take that project on and try to line. Lining a sewer means you're sending a plastic sleeve down through there so it doesn't leak anymore. So where that water's supposed to go, it goes. Doesn't have any infiltration in it. It doesn't leak out into the ground. It goes where it's supposed to go. And then the last thing was to submit an SSDS to the EPA identifying your sources and the quantities of where your water infiltration and inflow is coming from. 3 years of data so far since this happened has made clear that requiring the elimination of inflow and infiltration to our sewers, I&I, which can prompt the need to discharge, is imperative. Much of this I&I comes directly from footer drains and cross connections on private property. We're estimating that well over 90% of what fills our system up is coming off of property, is coming off of homes. Older systems that are connected right, water that's leaking into them, et cetera, et cetera. Has the city done everything possible to address this? From 2020, please, no distraction. Just allow me to get the information out to you. From 2020, a number of steps have been taken to address the problem. The city has started repairing, relining, and replacing sewer lines on streets and alleys, catch basins, and parking lots, and were incorrectly tied to the sanitary sewer. Some have been corrected. So, have we been doing things? Yes, we absolutely have in the last 3 years, and I just listed those. Could there have been other things done? Yeah, I mean, like Toledo and other communities, they bury storage tanks. Very, very costly to store stuff that typically would overflow a system. They throw it into a storage tank. They spent $500 million the last 2 years to do that. It has not had an impact on their system. They're getting ready to go to the voters this November for $1 billion to try to upgrade their sewer plant to stop what's going on here. Understand that Toledo discharges copious amounts of sewage because of their population and their aging infrastructure. Are homeowners being targeted? While substantial repairs are being made on public infrastructure, which helps us to address the situation, the problem still exists, and much more work needs to be done to fully comply with the state and federal law. Data indicates that a substantial amount of inflow and infiltration, I&I, problem in the city sanitation system is coming from private laterals on resident properties and have either improper connections and or consist of damaged or interior deteriorating materials like clay. And the reason why clay doesn't last over a period of time is it falls apart and is permeable. Water runs right through it. Just if you have groundwater, if you have a clay pipe in your yard, and there's a heavy rain and groundwater floods your property, most contractors that have worked in this field know that it goes right through clay, and out it goes and into the sanitary sewer. What does improper lateral connection mean? Laterals can carry sanitary water, should only be connected to the sanitary system. However, many homes have improper connections to their sanitary service laterals, such as downspouts, sub pumps, and footer drains. Those connections carry stormwater, which they're not supposed to, which should be discharged to a yard, a natural body of water, to a storm system, in a parking lot for a business. You see it in a retention pond. Clean water should not be going where we have to treat it. The system doesn't allow it, and you're also paying exponential dollars to treat water that doesn't need to be treated. There must be another way to pay for this, is a question. Why should residents have to bear the brunt? A property owner is responsible for maintenance, repair, or replacement of the building sewer lateral to the point of connection to the city sanitary. Consider if the city of Maumee funded directly by tax and ratepayers, it is impossible to fathom another source of funds that do not originate with residents and payers themselves. Even if the city were to raise rates again, specifically assess and or implement a surcharge to cover these costs, those funds would still be paid by our users. City staff have already applied for federal and state grants. We will continue to do that. We've been turned down. It almost feels like we've been singled out from the state and they don't want to help us, but that's not going to stop us trying to do that. That'll be ongoing. The city administration and members of council do not care about their residents. Maumee City Council and myself, we live in Maumee, we have families here, we've raised them here as well, and we will also abide by the same inspections and the rules that are governed by the EPA. Even though it's unpleasant, we still have to do it. This is too big of a burden and I cannot afford to pay these costs. We understand and sympathize with the residents. Maumee is no longer in a position to ignore this problem. That is a definite. We cannot just say no. That's not an option. I'm certainly welcome to any other options, but that's not one of them. We are also researching the possibility of potential loan and our grant programs to ease the financial burden. I've had our finance director work hours of trying to find anything out there that we can use. And currently, we're talking about a possible situation that we can come up with that can help do that. But that will be my commitment, our administration's commitment, and our finance director's commitment to try to find ways to try to ease that burden. What if I'm selling my house? Understand that this ordinance is a real property conveyance, which is passed on June 17th. It requires a sewer inspection at the point of sale and applies only to private properties listed for sale. Does not apply to those that are not selling their home. It's a conveyance ordinance. And now,
How's that gonna fix the problem?
this is easy. Be careful, I'm not done. I would encourage though, that if you have the opportunity to get your property inspected, you're not selling your home, but you want to know what you have, that is certainly a proactive thing to do. Probably something I would do myself as well. So,
Have you done it? Have you done it?
we talk, we got some, you can, if you want, inspect your property proactively, is what I'm telling you. You do not have to do it unless you're selling your home. It's a point of conveyance. That's it. That's it, that's what it says. Here, don't add nothing more to it. That's it. So, to be clear, the choices for us are limited. I have to be brutally honest. Choices are limited. And we don't have a choice. That we must comply with what's being asked of us and try to fix what we have, which I don't think we'll ever get there completely, but we have to provide a proactive report to the EPA to say, hey, look, they've asked that from us. That was part of the rules and orders. What are you going to do? And that is part of the process that we have to give to them and say, hey, look, this is what we are trying to do. We cannot just close the valve. That is not an option because basements now become the holding tank. Sewage only goes up or down. That's it. And it's a system, a closed system. You either relieve it or it backs up. So I'd like Patrick Burt to kind of explain a little bit about the engineering of the overflow, Mr. Burt, about how big the sewer pipe is, what can possibly be in it, what happens when rainwater hits it, and how some of these posters are indicative of properties that you've seen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think,
Get that microphone up there.
I'm sorry, thank you. Thank you. The issue we have here, obviously, we've got, when we put in storm sewers instead of putting in new sanitaries back in the 80s, we probably made an error. Obviously, nobody here, employed here now was here then, but I'll give somebody the idea that nobody really truly understood the impact of footer drains and sump pumps on the overall system, because people looked at it and said, it's just one house. But when you put 5,000 houses together, it makes a huge contribution to that problem. Now, before the 1980s, our storm sewers in the streets went right to the sanitary sewer. And that's what we're faced with. So we've got a sewer here, and I'm gonna say why the program involves clay sewers. You'll notice that this illustration right here shows a sanitary pipe. The storm is there. Right in here, the groundwater, we've got pretty bad soils here. Everybody knows that in this room. I don't have to tell you something you already don't know. But when the water gets up in these laterals, even if we just lined the pipe, which we are doing now, spending millions of dollars lining every pipe that we have. The rate that was just levied was levied so that we could do $60 million with the main line lining over a 15-year period. If the EPA even gives us 15 years. We only have 12 years left. And in no case have they given anybody more than 20. So that's what we're up against. But when this pipe is lined, you assume no water's getting into it. I've already taken my footer drains out. But when I get down here, when that water comes up, then we've got water getting in the joint of that clay pipe. Now the mastic they used back in the day, and how we got here, is that tar material that you use, you put the ends of those tiles together, don't last very long. If I went out in the street that we just paved 5 years ago, or even a year ago, I would probably pull it up with a backhoe, and then we've all seen this, pull up and you try to dig through a pavement you just put down, it's still fluid, it bends. 5 years later, it bends a little less before it breaks, and in 10 years, 15 years, that pavement snaps when you pull it up. That means the tar product is curing constantly in its lifetime. There's plenty of studies out there, academic studies, that talk about the mastic when they put sewers together. So when we videotape and your sewer looks pristine, but it's clay, know that that sewer was probably put in 85 years ago, and the seal in those joints probably is gone 50 years ago, which means they're operating like field tile. That's the problem that we're facing. So if we went in and said, everybody has to do, that's selling your house, has to do a sump crock and have their footer drains tied in and then pump it out the side of the house or into a storm sewer pipe, we still have this pipe in the ground that a lot of cases is underwater. And we know that because when we see the data coming from the flow meters, they're pretty technologically advanced flow meters, what we're finding is that when we've had non-saturated ground, which means you've been a long time since you had a rain event, it takes a long time for our meters to recognize that increased flow. That's because the ground's not saturated and the ground's absorbing a lot of it. Trees, everybody, they're absorbing that water. When we have a springtime, which is where our biggest problem is, we see, even on lesser rainfall, we see immediately at the meters because we're seeing this. The ground is saturated and we don't have to wait for the rain. We're getting constant flow. For example, fairgrounds. You've heard about the lawsuit between the city and the county. The fairgrounds contributes a lot of stormwater to our system in Key Street and in Michigan Avenue. And we're battling back and forth. You know, we believe the county owes us $2 million in water that got into that sanitary system that you all are paying to treat. So we take it in, and then we send it back to the county to treat the same water. That's some of the problems we have. And even though they've lined sewers, it hasn't made a difference. Because I'll tell you, our meters register flow coming off the fairgrounds, even when it hasn't rained for a week and a half. And nobody's there using the sewer or flushing the toilet. So we know that it's tiled underground, and that water is getting to us because of saturated soils. Over here, this obviously talks about an improper connection. And when we look at a house, we're looking at this and saying, stack comes down here, many of you have a stack that goes in the ground. Some people have a sump pump, some people don't, but you have a floor drain, and then the pipe comes down here, and you've got a connection where these things cross in, and this water, you probably can't see it in this illustration, but it actually goes down into the pipe. The proper connection is to actually disconnect this. What we'd like to see is the sanitary sewer punched through the wall so that there's no way somebody could just inadvertently, after stuff was done, so that they reconnected their footer drain. I've seen this many times, and I've seen builders do it, by the way, even with plastic pipe. They'll put a basement in, you walk up and say, how's that basement? It just rained for 2 days. How's that basement and all that stone in that basement before you start building the house? Why is it dry? Because they took paddle bits, and it's underneath the footer, and they drilled holes so the sanitary takes the flow away so they don't have to work in water. That happens. So we like to check those things. What we find though, and I've seen a number of videos, we've done 30 inspections as of yesterday, and we have video camera, and you're all welcome if that gets camera, you get that video, we'll give you a thumb drive, you can look at your own camera video, and it's pretty easy to see where the footer drain ties directly to the sanitary. That's what, whether you pump it in there with a sump pump or you have it gravity fed, the water that gets in the sump pump came directly from the tile. So whether you have a sump pump or you don't, that water just gets there faster with a sump pump because it's pumping and pushing. So that's what we're seeing. So a lot of the pipes that we see, we even have on Hugo Street, for instance, we have a 24-inch clay pipe. It's the main sewer. And it doesn't, you know, we got some that they're offset and so on, but when we videotaped it on a day when it hadn't rained for a couple weeks, nothing. Water was about that far in the bottom of the pipe, whatever people flushed out of the toilets, that's what you see. I know it seems kind of gross, but that's what you saw. But the day it rained, we videotaped it again. And it looked like you were going through a car wash at every joint. A clay sewer that had that kind of mastic installed many years ago was leaking as if you were going through the last section of car wash, the water's rinsing off the soap off your car. That's exactly what those videos look like. That's an incredible amount of water. And remember, the water that we're getting in those pipes, normally on a normal day, it's that sanitary sewer, you have about 2-3 inches of water flowing on a dry day. When it surcharges, that pipe is completely full and it's backing up into storm sewers, and we're having to discharge it to the river so that it doesn't back up in people's floor drains. Many people have seen that. I don't know how many people out here has had their floor drains back up, but I'm sure there are several, for sure, because we know that we used to come in and clean basements. So those are the kind of things that we're actually witnessing when we see these videotapes. It's not something that looks good, nobody likes to see it, and a lot of people don't take on these fixes that are actually going to do and make a difference because they know this is what happens. If they don't like it, people don't want to pay for it, which is monthly either, that's how it goes. But what's happening is we understand that the easy fix is to do something that doesn't really affect somebody's property and doesn't really cost them money out of their pocket right now that they can see. Those are the easiest things to do. But those are the things that have the least amount of impact in terms of fixing this problem. I can tell you, I've experienced with the EPA back in the 90s. They do not let you go. This is not something that you just say, well, if you don't want to do it, we're okay with that. Now, is the EPA probably going to hold you to no discharge? That's unlikely. It's unfair, especially since if Toledo or Perrysburg and Napoleon have their own plants, you can get a National Pollution Control discharge permit, and you can discharge so much. The idea of pollution is a dilution, dilution is a solution to pollution, right? So we all get those, right? We don't do it because we're just a collection system. We pay the county to take our water. Mayor McDonald mentioned, and I just want to touch on this briefly, is that part of our plan that we're going to be submitting to the EPA is to put a plan together that doesn't require even more draconian measures on residents, right? So we're asking them, hey, this is really hard, even what we're proposing is hard. If you hold to that findings and order, it's going to be even that much tougher. So we're asking them, listen, at some point, there will be I&I reduction, which is that inflow infiltration that Mayor McDonald spoke of, but also, you may have to store water, store sewage. The more you don't take sewage and water, stormwater coming out of footer drains, the more you will store it, and every taxpayer here and every ratepayer here will pay to eventually treat it at the county plant. Right now, just so you know, we pay for about 4 million gallons a day. There are days when we're taking on 12 to 18 million gallons a day. You know where that goes? To the river. And the river takes it for free, unfortunately. They do. But if we capture all that water and store it because we don't get rid of enough through footer drain disconnection, we will have to build storage tanks that saves it for another day to send it to the county, and now they will charge us. Now remember that the water we take in is 4 times what we actually produce in sewage. Another creepy thing to say, but that's the issue. We actually, on a 10-year storm event, take 4 times the amount of water in our system than was already there. If your rate is high now, and I just want to make clear that if we have to store it and then eventually treat it, that all is a dollar for dollar expense from the county. They have to, that's what they charge. There's no slam to the county. That bill goes up exponentially, and it's consistent over time. It's not something that goes away like a fix that you would do, a one-time or two-time fix. It's constantly being charged to you. The city only charges you what it costs to maintain that system, hire the employees to maintain the system, and to pay the county for our portion, 16.7% of the debt, and the rate comes from the city of Maumee because that reflects their volume. And sometimes we have a big 54-inch pipe that's 47 feet deep that ties into Jerome Road. That pipe gets surcharged. It should never be surcharged. We should never be giving more than 10 or 12 inches of water in the bottom of that pipe to the county. There are times when it's completely surcharged. You can't even see the pipe. It hits its limit. That means we are taking on that much water. And that's even with stuff being discharged to the river that we should not be doing. And it's a terrible problem. It's absolutely a terrible problem. And I think what Mayor McDonald was saying is, having done this kind of stuff for a long, long time, I wish that I could have a better answer for how it gets fixed or how it gets paid. I'm a little surprised. When we applied for money from the EPA, we've applied for almost $20 million a couple of different times, and we've been turned down. We were turned down on two $5 million grants that we applied for that would be doing sewer laterals up to the right-of-way line, and we were turned down even though we were the second project listed in the county. There were projects around the state that got funded before we did. I'm sorry, Tom. You're right. My arm drops down. So yeah. So I think there's some truth to the matter that when we got attacked by just about everybody that we reported ourselves for sewage dumping, that came with retribution, right? People thought how disgusting we were for doing it. Nobody here was here when they did that, and I get that people didn't tell the truth about the fact that we were doing this to the county or the EPA. We don't have those reports. In fact, we filed reports that said there were no discharges when we know that the overtime reports showed that we actually pulled the pumps out and paid people to go do it. And it says it right on those reports. And those criminal investigators have those. That's not our issue now. When I told council about this problem, literally it was like a deer in headlights. One of them asked me, "We're doing what?" One person thought that those pumps, which is what I thought when I first come, those pumps out there were dumping stormwater to stormwater for the first 2 weeks I was here.
Let me ask you a quick question. Is that why grants have been denied? Because of the wrongdoing?
I don't know, but I can only suggest.
They don't give you a reason?
No, they don't.
And could it be because we're spending monies elsewhere, like for the arches and the trees?
No.
and-
Enterprise funds, just a quick lesson.
Don't you think that's
Quick lesson.
valid?
No, I don't.
Like if
I don't because
if you were asking me for money as a grant, and I saw that your city was spending it on arches and trees, and I realized that you're saying that the state did that, the trail, but I would be like, you're not getting any money.
people in the EPA operate with enterprise funds all the time. State and federal law requires that federal funds that are funds that are used and derived from a utility get spent in that utility. I can't intermingle those funds. No matter what you want me to do, I can't. And they know that. This is not, these grant operators, and I gotta tell you, I've written grants my whole career. A total of $48 million in grants in my career. Never been turned down for a grant. You come here, and because you have a lot of people out there making press conferences saying how disgusting Maumee is, and we got caught, we didn't report ourselves, we reported ourselves, because we had to report ourselves. When I told council this was a problem, they were very clear. We have to call the EPA right now. In fact, when I called them, we sat down on a call with somebody at the Bowling Green office, and we told them, hey, we got a problem, we got to talk to you about it. We set up a Zoom call during COVID. I'll get right to it. And I said, we got a problem. We've been dumping sewage, and those 7 regulators we told you that were gone in 1996 are still there and they're operational. One behind your house, at least. So he looked at me like, what? I'm not going to tell you his name. He says, I got to get back with you. Within a week, we had another meeting. Federal EPA, state EPA officials, people from the they took it very seriously, but we didn't get caught. In fact, he was surprised. He goes, "We haven't heard from Maumee on any discharges since 1996. That should never happen, but it did. And I'm gonna go back and I'll pay deference to people who worked here at some point before, didn't realize the impact of these drains on the system.
And the EPA never checked to see if we were actually compliant when we claimed that we were.
I suspect not, but I would never say that, because I'm hoping the EPA works with us. In the last 3 years, if you talk to a woman named Tiffany Cadillac, who used to be the state director of wastewater, she will tell you, Cadillac, I'm sorry, she will tell you, and she's told us many times, that the city of Maumee has moved faster than many other communities to do stuff on its own before they were told through an SSES program. We didn't want to be held flat-footed where all of a sudden we're sitting there, 3 years later we got a report and we had to ramp it up. We've been actually lining sewers. You've seen it uptown, so a lot of the uptown work you see was part sewer work as well. We lined all the sewers that are going through under all those streets. We're going to be starting another sewer. We're doing a sewer lining. We started today. We're doing another one on the other side of town. We've spent millions and millions of dollars. Now, we did get low-interest loans, but those have to be paid back. She has a question.
Yeah, let's stop.
All right, so we'll get to the question piece, all right? So, in essence, just to sum up very quickly about what our position is that EPA has told us, find the source of the clean water that's getting in your system and surcharging it, filling it up, and eliminate it, minimize it. That's on our properties. That's where it's coming from. It's old tiles, it's old systems, it's improper tie-ins, it's broken down stuff, it's water leaking in, literally when a house surcharges, it could be producing as much as 6 other homes in that street, just from the water that comes off that property. Some fixers are very expensive, some are the middle of the road, some are not so much, depending on what your property has. If it's a pretty high fix that you gotta fix a lot of stuff, there's a pretty good indication you're throwing a ton of water into the system. Hence, the necessity to fix a larger problem in your home because of what is surcharging off your property. It's not going where it's supposed to go. Just trying to simplify it. So, the next piece was, how can we help people that are in a predicament? I can tell you that, I've worked with Patrick for a couple years now, and I can tell you that he is somebody that always says yes. And he will come out to your house, weekends, nights, Sunday night. If you call, he'll come out and say, and somebody's got a problem, say, hey, this is what I've got. What is your opinion? This is what a contractor has said that I need. What do you think? He's done that. And when I hear people say that he's the cause and he needs to go, it is very disturbing to me because I know exactly how committed he is to this community. And he will help you if need be, and so will our sewer department. And actually, our sewer department has the technology to do the best with the cameras, not outside contractors. We have very good equipment that our guys know exactly how to get in there, what they're looking for, and and to tell you what you have. So, to look for an outside contractor, I can't speak on their behalf, but I know what our guys do, and I know what I can trust with what they do. We will continue to seek out funding for help. That is definitely on our A list, and it has been all along. We hear you with that. I get it. So it has to be something that is equitable and it works. So we will continue to look at that. So the questions we received last night. Let's go through those real quick, and it might answer some instead of people just yelling out concerns, which is probably a lot of the same stuff.
Can I ask something while you're looking at that real quick? Because Patrick indicated that you guys are lining the pipes in the street, is that correct?
In our older sections of the city
Yeah.
that are leaking,
Yes.
yes.
That's correct.
So you're lining those pipes, are they the clay pipes?
Sometimes they're clay, sometimes they're not plastic. If they're plastic, we're not lining them because they're pretty.
You don't have to line plus.
But I think what we're seeing is that we're seeing clay and vitrified concrete is what we're lining.
So
What-
you said it made no difference.
What's that?
You said it made no difference.
No, what I'm saying is that I've been in a community where we put brand new plastic mains everywhere and we underestimated how much water was coming into those type of systems. It's not unimportant because the community I was in before had concrete pipe, they weren't that old, but they still leak. But we can't underestimate that. That's the mistake I made in my 20s. I won't make it here, but that's what you see communities doing all the time. They wonder why it doesn't work because it's that A, B, C task. We go to work, we want to do the D task, the C task, we get up off our desk, we say we did something. The A task, people don't want to take it on. It's too difficult, it's too big, I don't want to think about it. I'll retire out of this, I don't have to worry about it. That's what happens. The A task is something we have to band together and take care of. We do have to find ways to help fund it, for sure. I mean, we're doing that every chance we get.
Now, is there a place where we can find what streets you've worked on, where you've done those pipes?
Actually, I have those documents, I didn't bring copies of them, but if I get you a card or something, we'll email you that information.
If you're not on our monthly newsletter, when we get requests like that, to say, hey, can you show me something like that? That is exactly something that Nancy would put on our monthly newsletter. That gets posted on our website. If you want it sent directly to your email address, you go to our website, you subscribe to it, it's free, it comes right in your home.
Well, see, I
And-
can vote from the list because I'm getting overwhelming to vote for the strong city, so I said, I didn't sign up with it,
So anyway, that's available, okay, that's available.
Well, I
So,
wanna hear it.
can we go over some of these questions that might help answer? Yes,
I wanna hear it.
yes.
Jim, you spoke about the sewer guys here in Maumee and all that. I've had a sewer issue for about 10 years. I've had private contractors come out that indicated and scoped my line. Your guys have come out and run a scope all the way down the thing, and there's tree roots blocking a Y, okay? And apparently I have to break someplace, but nobody will tell me where that Y is. And you guys have passed an ordinance now that from the sidewalk to the road is now my responsibility.
Yeah.
And that, where before it was the city's responsibility. My simple question a year and a half ago, when they were out there scoping, is where is the Y? And that tree, with all the tree roots is blocking the sewer line, actually 2 sewer lines because of the Y, 2 houses. Where is this? Where does the contractor have to dig to repair that? And their response is they're not allowed to tell us because they lose their job. And so,
And they told us that 3 times now.
so I've been going through this for 5 years. My lines are open, my water's flowing. I wanna fix my problem, but I don't wanna fix the city's problem now that you guys passed the ordinance. Now I gotta do from the sidewalk to the street and all that. But I can't get an honest answer from anybody, and I've left messages at the city, as they told me, and nobody calls back. And I got photos of the root ball at the Y, wherever that mysterious Y is underground. So if somebody can help me with that, I'd be happy.
I have no idea why they told you that, sir, but our trucks, we know exactly how far that camera is in. I can tell you it's 72.5 feet.
Well, 3 times they told us that their jobs are on the line if they open their mouth.
Right.
And Barry and Son was there when they told us.
When was that, ma'am? How many years
About
ago?
a year and a half ago.
They thought they were, you know, what person told you they're gonna lose their job, because that's not our policy. We would tell anybody anything. It's public information.
Well, somebody come out and tell me where the Y is, and
Well, I don't know if they
But
still have that
I
camera.
think we can handle individual requests like that. That's what I'm talking about as far as we can help you out.
Without
I-
starting at 9 o'clock.
So, again,
Right.
again.
If you guys look at it, then we've got 90 days to repair it. We don't have that kind of money. We both have medical expenses, a lot of medical expenses, because we both go to Cleveland Clinic. So we cannot take our money out of our savings account and do it in 90
So we need a workable solution.
Thank you.
Right. You talked at the beginning about inheriting.
I have a question for you. Do we all agree this should have been handled differently? Why did you wait and have an emergency meeting? I mean, if you'd had been up front with everybody when this initially started, people would have a different reaction, you know? And then you flipped it out, you passed this resolution or whatever it is, and you stuffed it down your throat. That made everybody bitter.
But you passed it after you passed the ordinance to change from easement to the house becomes property owner. No, you said at the very beginning.
Okay, whoa, okay.
And I'm trying to be polite.
Yeah, I get that, but,
You said you inherited this, some people bought houses and inherited it.
okay.
Well, most of them said we're all inherited. So that's why you're
And the
here.
organization for hiding this garbage. Those are the people you gotta go after, not us. The previous organization.
It's been totally explained to you why, okay? And I can't change that order. It comes from the federal government. I can't change that.
Local people, the guys who pay, the mayor or the other people. They've been there all of these years
So
and they
all-
haven't done nothing.
All we can do is try to give you the facts about where the system is and what we can do to help fix it. That's what I'm here for. We had a date of July that we needed to put this in place with the EPA to answer your question, sir, and it needed to come forth quickly as to what our plan was. We've been working on that the last couple of years. And-
Yeah.
No, we didn't know, no, it was 3 years worth of data that we collected that determined where the water was coming from.
You knew then, though, that was a problem.
We didn't know until you have the data, all right?
We put the pumps out, we knew.
Employees knew.
If we can't get the information to you, then this will be over. So, there's people here that wanna hear, there's other people that just wanna peel some flesh off of somebody, and that's all they want. They don't care about anything else. I'm just being blunt about it. So,
But it's not about feeling, it's about making sure you're hearing.
Yeah, go to the question.
all right, we'll go through the questions. Here we go. Patrick, just, we'll go through this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't state that. Are there funds available to fix repairs? That was the actual highest response. There are. We talked a little bit about this. Unfortunately, the idea of grants to be government money to be spent on private properties is very new. In fact, it's not available to us. It's available through the feds, if you can find it. There's CHIP programs, but they're income control, those kind of things. I can't go in there and neither can the council and take private money and fix your basement any more than they can fix your roof or replace your windows. They can't. I mean, it's just like that. So, the issue is, how do you find funding? It ends up coming in low interest loans, and whether you like to hear it or you don't, that's just a fact. I mean, my house has a sewer, that sewer belongs to me. I can't expect my neighbor to pay for it, because that's what's happening. That's our responsibility, and it's sad, because people bought houses here unsuspectingly. They bought houses in communities unsuspectingly all over this country with this problem, and yes, they did know that this was a problem. I've got a study right here.
Who's that?
Hold on 1 second. Got a study here, published by Finkbeiner, Pedersen, Stroud. You remember that firm before it became Arcadis? 1998. That clearly states that we have footer drain problems, and it is a huge portion of this. And I get that. But I gotta tell you, I'm not sure everybody truly understood the impact of what they're reading here. These are big problems. So yeah, there's blame. There is blame to go around for people that worked here years ago. I mean, that big lie started in the 90s. This isn't even the 2000s. This is a long time ago. And very little was done. They did design a storm sewer to run on the other side of town from East Michigan, but it doesn't really help to put a storm sewer in when the sewer you left as sanitary is leaking. That doesn't help. So pretty much everybody knows today that if you're gonna fix a sewer problem, you either line the sewers or you replace the sanitary sewers. You do not replace the large combination sewers. But that was the thing that happened in the 80s and 90s, and that's just what happened.
One comment I'd like to add, there was an ordinance passed 94, 96 about the grant program for people to separate their sewers. Alan, can you talk a little bit about that? There was a grant program about allowing people to separate their sewers back in either 94 or 96. And you're saying people would have taken care of it if they knew about it? There was money available for 10 years on a voluntary basis. We had a handful in the entire city that was willing to do it. They were not gonna do it. You can go ahead and speak to that.
I believe the ordinance actually was in 2004 that they passed, and it provided funds up to $3,000 for these type of repairs, or whether it was any clean water connection that the city would pay $3,000 of the cost, or half the cost, up to a total of $3,000. And again, the response was very limited as to that program, that people did have the opportunity then to take advantage of it, whether they were aware of it or not. I wasn't here, but in 2004, I'm just indicating that there was such a program in the city of Maumee.
Okay, let's go down through a couple more of these.
Excuse me.
I think we talked about the uptown. I got this sent from the person that took care of that meeting yesterday and said she wanted me to go through this. If you don't want me to, I won't.
I just wonder because we were talking about something, if we could ask something about that,
So,
but no.
we talked about uptown money, why you see uptown repairs as opposed to fixes in our sewer business. We talked about that. Can this be put on hold until the city thinks it through better for the citizens?
You could put it on hold. That wouldn't work out very well for the city, since we've reported ourselves over 3.5 years ago and have been working on it and hired the consultants. That has been a public process. In fact, we had press releases on it. We have it in our newsletter. We also have it on our website. We also did videos to try to help people explain why this problem exists. That video is still on YouTube that we had professionally done to help people understand it. Many of you do, so I apologize. I don't mean to insult anybody. Many of the people in this audience know about how their sewers are hooked in or not hooked in, how that works. So I certainly don't mean to insult. And we're not the end-all and end-all of knowledge regarding the sewer system, but combined have a lot of experience doing it. So,
What are the funds generated from increase in sewer rates? What are they going towards?
they're going directly. We actually backed into the number because we had to figure out what we had to do and what it would cost in today's dollars to line the main line sewers. And we came up with a price of about $60 million. Hopefully inflation takes care of that, and we're rushing as quickly as possible to get those things lined because we don't want inflation to eat up that money. Oh, and treatment costs, we did have increases when the county expands their plants. We pay 16.7% of all that cost. Every time the county, and they don't ask us, it just happens. When our rates go up for water, when not all of it, we had a substantial increase in water rates, and we pay it. That's how it goes. It's not, we don't have a choice. We have a 30-year contract, and that's for that money.
What other options for fixes have been presented?
Actually, we've had a number of options. Some of the stuff, because we're still negotiating with the EPA, and because it regards land purchase, we don't get too far into those weeds. But I can assure you that we looked at options that we thought over time would cost less money to the ratepayers, all of it. And one of that is to go to the EPA and ask them for a certain percentage reduction in I&I, and then perhaps store some of that and treat it later. And I said earlier, to the extent that we can actually send less to storage and eventually treat it, the long-term effect on your rates is far more positive than if we could have just said, it's a big problem, Hooters are hard. Toledo hasn't moved to do that. We are, because we could simply say, build enough storage that would make about 30 of those 2 million gallon water towers full of sewage. We could do that, but it would be hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. That would be far more expensive than the pain we go through to separate those and then do smaller forms of storage to send it to the plant. And we hope that the EPA agrees with us, because we are not proposing to completely eliminate all discharges. That is difficult at best. It really is. Because these things are all underground, and no matter with the best technology, you aren't going to find everything that's leaking. You just can't. And there are sometimes we can actually get in your footer drains and look around the house for a can. Sometimes we can't. They're separated, they're butt-end field tile, we just can't get there. So we're looking at all sorts of options. We continue to do that, and when we sit with EPA, hopefully in early August, after we submit our report and Stantec has finalized their final report, I'm quite sure our report is going to suggest certain options. I can't imagine EPA saying, thank you, we're great with that, sign off. I don't think that's going to happen. We don't believe that'll happen, but we're going to start a negotiation, because just bending forward backwards and saying we're going to do whatever you tell us to do without considering what we think people can even remotely afford seems irresponsible. So we're trying. It is irresponsible, and we're trying our best to make sure that doesn't happen. We can laugh about this.
You're forcing them.
It's not.
You're going to people's homes and trampling on their rights, and then charging them tens of
Nobody's
thousands
forcing
of
anybody
dollars.
into anybody's home.
You're
Nobody's
putting
done it.
liens on the title.
Nobody's putting liens on title. Anyway,
Not to mention fines, the fines, criminal charges. Right.
yeah, and I do want to make clear that there are fixes that we have done, right? There are a number of parking lots we did. When you saw the smoke testing happen about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we have a number of parking lots that are now disconnected. We had disconnected the main parking lot at Golden Gate Plaza. That was tied in. Burger King was tied in. There's a number of those. Can you imagine when a parking lot ties in? We have a lot of downspouts tied in. Please, if you have a downspout at home, please disconnect it. Don't let it go into the ground unless you know that it's going into a storm sewer connection. But you know, I remember when we first got here, if we would do an inch rainfall in a couple of hours, we would discharge. We're not discharging.
We still have combination drains though on the plumber. Combination drain is sewer and storm together.
No, we do
Right
not.
down my street, bull.
No, we
Right on
don't.
the lid.
No, we don't.
I can show you.
Okay, well, you don't get the elephant.
I didn't yell, excuse me, but I wasn't all wrong.
But you call me and I'll go out there with you. You
Okay.
prove me
All
out.
right.
Okay.
It says combination storm drain right in my front yard.
Well, it may, because they didn't change the casting cover, because
Okay.
castings had that, but,
Okay, my bad.
we're separated. But call me, I'll come out and look, and I'd like to change the casting, because I don't want people to think that.
We still have combination drains in this city of mine.
Well,
You say we don't?
we don't.
Okay, keep moving on.
What we have is they connect back at the regulators at the river, and then they combine again. That's to give up, to go overflow. So, you have another question?
One question, is this legal? And is this legal?
Of course it's legal, what else would I say? There's a number of, mainly in the Cleveland area, but there's a number of cities there that have like whole home inspections at the time of sale, which includes the roof, foundation, all your plumbing, heating systems, you name it. They require a full inspection and clearance before you can sell your home. There's a number of cities that also do just require sewer lateral inspections, and which is what we tried to take on. But these ordinances have been upheld by the courts.
Why not raise income tax 2% from 1.5% and use the extra money to fix the sewer issue for people's property?
Say again, Mr. Mayor.
Why not raise income tax from 2% to up to 2% from 1.5% and use the proceeds to fix sewer issues on people's private property?
Because, again, spending income tax.
Can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I apologize. And please keep reminding me. Once those become federal, once they become public funds, spending them on private property, let's say you have a sewer that you've already paid to fix, and then you get your income tax raised to pay for your neighbors. seen that before. Half a percentage income tax, this one makes it clear, will not raise enough money to fix this problem. Unless you think, I mean, the problem we're faced with, seriously, over 15 years, is between 120 and 150 million dollars. That's what we're facing. This isn't 30, not 20. This is a dire situation. We all understand that. But a 0.5% of income tax won't touch this.
What was that number again? What was that number again?
0.5%.
No, the number that you just said that would take.
Between 120 and 150 million dollars. If we actually aren't shot down on what we're proposing.
And that would be to fix what? The estimate that you're
That
giving.
includes those, that includes lining the sewers, that includes putting new sewers in cases where we don't have, where somebody's accidentally tied to a storm. That's capacity increases in terms of pipe size in certain areas, and that includes some storage. Because we don't have time to chase down every infiltration. That would take decades and decades and decades. That's what it would take.
Why doesn't the city work with the state for a grant? I think we answered that one. Why do people have to pay for an inspection, and why is it only good for 5 years?
Well, pay for inspection is $100 for the hour to inspect. I don't think we've had anything over an hour so far. But we do this is because when somebody has to go inspect your home, your neighbor and your neighbors are paying for your inspection if you're not charged for it. People pay for what they get. And unfortunately, we tend to treat local government as if that money came from somewhere in the basement where Fort Knox is, and nobody in this room was the one that contributed that money. The only money that the city has to spend is money you all gave for that purpose to serve you. And that's what the problem is. Nobody wants to pay more. Nobody does. I don't know if anybody could say, hey, I'd like to pay more taxes.
Julie, you
My question goes back to when you had stated that this was just right now for people who are selling their homes. So we have right now 47 homes in Maumee for sale, is that about right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
Let's say whatever. Let's say 50. So 50 people, is that just those houses? What is the average over a year of houses we sell in Maumee? Is that going to fix the problem? Because you keep coming back saying it's a massive problem, and this is not going to be individual homeowners unless you sell your house. It'll never catch up. We'll
Okay,
never fix it.
so, and I'll let you answer that in a minute. We can certainly take a survey and put everybody on the block, every home in the city to fix the problem. But we didn't think that was feasible. We thought, well, I'm just, over time, we're trying to actually buy time with the EPA and try to give them something that appeases them, that they're okay with, without going down that road. And, which we would prefer not to, because
Number of what we have to reach in order, because we don't, because they wanna say nothing, right? They say, we don't end nothing, we don't have that magic
Yeah.
number. So, but to ask the individual homeowner, this doesn't make sense to me, is that, okay, I'm gonna get ABC Plumber, I'm gonna.
They listen to this bullshit.
All over the city, why, I think the community is upset that they want, no one's doubting your problem. No one's doubting that. I think everybody can agree with this. But I think we're very upset that it's being, all, these people up here, which we voted you, we understand we voted you, but try, is there a committee that you can talk to the community? You're only, you don't set it, every one of you have said it, we're not professionals. We're not professional plumbers. We don't know. And you have 14,000 people in this community, over 6,500 homes. Somebody could collectively, could maybe help with the solution, but this is what I'm hearing our community say is, you're not listening or including us to make these decisions behind doors. We voted this in. I understand that. But in order, we're coming back to the common sense portion. Does it really make sense when I've lived here my whole life and I
a family can support that, and that's not how Malmy was set up ever.
You're right, Malmy wasn't set up like that forever. But Malmy was set up to spend more money than it had. And it did it for years, and my point is, if you took the cost of our budget and divided it up by every household, it would be far more money than anybody in this room pays. It's not, it's, it doesn't. Let me answer, please. I would never do that to you, ever. And I expect that respect in some measure, please. The issue here is trying to figure out and help us understand. I feel the same way sometimes. I'm gonna go to my local government, and I'm gonna walk up to that vending machine, put a quarter in, and get $10,000 worth of services out. There isn't enough money to do everything that this community has to do. And anything you wanna hear about strong towns, or that book, and I'll tell you, is that a lot of cities have real financial problems, and they don't recognize it yet. I mean, think about it. If you had to invest to replace every street, every sewer, every pipe in your yard, that number would be over $1 billion just for 13,000 people. Can you imagine what it would be in Toledo? That money isn't available. Choices have to be made, and you're right, and we've had this discussion before. The issue is trying to figure out how we fund police and we fund fire, and we do all of those things, and because you have a problem here, doesn't mean that you don't do anything over here. And there are certain pots of money that have to be spent certain places. So it's called management, and you have to do that. And it's, our knee-jerk reaction is to say, hey, I want it all spent here because that means I'm going to save that money. We would love for that to be the case. We absolutely would love that to be the case. There's nobody in this council, someone sitting over here, nobody wants to sit here and have people leer them down and so on, and feel uncomfortable or feel like they've been threatened on social media, which happened to me today. I love it. That's wrong. Nobody should have to do that.
I got a
Whether you
question.
like it or you don't. The issue is, I'm here as fiduciary to help. That's it. I don't gain anything. Jim doesn't gain anything. Dave, Mark, nobody gains anything by coming up here and deciding that people got to pay something to fix it. It's just how it is. Yes, we love the input. Please, if you come up with some solutions, that would be great. I've been doing this for studying sewer problems for 39 years. I'm doing it a long time. I'm not somebody who sits in an ivory tower who doesn't know how to do sewer construction. I do it. I've done it myself. I've done all sorts of work. That's not the issue. I understand it. I'm not some soup that doesn't know these issues. Probably one of the reasons I was brought here, only because I know these issues in construction. So I'm just trying to figure out a way, and so is council and the rest of us and our staff, is to find a way to offset those onerous costs. We don't like the fact that these cost so much. When I heard some of the prices people were getting, I was flabbergasted. I knew it would be more expensive than it would have been 10 years ago, but I was literally set aback by some of the numbers that we were seeing. And Jim's right. This weekend, I met with 3 homeowners that asked me out. And I looked at their basement. 2 of them walked away from that thinking, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. Because you walk into a basement, most people who do this work, there's some gentlemen in this room and some ladies in this room that know this, they walk up here, I walk in your basement. If you have a floor drain, doesn't mean you fail. Because a floor drain and a condensate pump in the state of Ohio, it wasn't this way in Michigan, in the state of Ohio, that could actually go in to the storm, or it could go into sanitary. Floor drain goes into sanitary. That's how it goes. You could do that. In the state of Michigan, I wasn't allowed to do that. It was a little bit different here. So that is an indication that you're going to fail. But then I look at the house. Is the house pre-1965? Better chance it may not make it. If I go in and I see a stack going into the ground, maybe another indication that it may not make it. If I see the lack of a sump pump proc, another reason it might be a problem. The 5th one, if I see a basement bathroom, then you might have an issue. It doesn't mean you automatically fail. It just means you should probably get an inspection to make sure that that's the case. Yeah.
The problem was trying to come up with a
They do accept tile to be installed. What they don't accept is that tile having a joint that leaks. That's very clear in EPA record. So there are clay pipe right now that they sell that actually fits with a gasket that actually works. We all know that. Most plumbers know it. Just like if you use SDR35 or use Blue End PVC, there's a lot of things, a lot of products out there that work. Just because it works now, and new vitrified clay is made a different way, and the male and the female and the male end fit together better, doesn't mean that something that was used 80 years ago works that well, because the mastic you used to seal it is now deteriorated, and that joint leaks like crazy. That's the difference. EPA doesn't love clay. We don't use it because we think we don't trust it.
So, the common issues are an EPA edict that we have to abide by. We know where the water's coming from, most of it. We know that we've tried programs in the past through volunteer with incentive money, no bite. People didn't want to do it. So, I mean, we've sat down and mulled this over. So, where do you make an impact? At point of sale when it's transferred, do you pick certain neighborhoods? Do you go in and say, okay, all of A, next 5 years, all of B, all of C? I'm just saying, we've talked about these things, right? Or do you try to go after the least intrusive thing for everybody and get the EPA to agree to it, which is a transfer of property, which is just several hundred homes a year. And hopefully you can try to make an impact. But I'm just laying the facts out. Be more than willing to give me something to go on. Because that's the problem. You look at a problem and you lay out the facts, and then you decide what are some solutions that can work.
Like the ends in sight. That's the problem. These 50 houses, which I'm one of, okay? It's a drop in the bucket. If I spend $30,000 and fix it, the other 30 houses on my street don't do anything. And it sounds like they're not gonna be forced to do anything until they sell. What's my incentive to do that, knowing that it's not gonna contribute an iota to this problem? It needs to be, it does need to be, hey, we're gonna do this sector of the city. We're coming in, we're lining the pipes, we're doing what we gotta do to fix it. Now we're gonna move to this sector. I think that would be more palatable, or there's an end in sight. This just sounds like it's
And require everybody in that sector to fix their houses.
Yes, that's what you're saying, they're already doing that.
Okay, so.
No.
Good.
Let me clarify this really real quick. We have a map, and I'll post it online on the website. It shows where the work areas of our town are. They're in red. Tom's neighborhood, and all around Tom's neighborhood, all the way down River Road. And unfortunately, if you live from Ford to the Trail, to Kingsbury, to Wayne, you're the big hot spot. If you live there, or you live east of Michigan, south of the tracks, north of 7. Those are the hottest spots in the town that are contributing the most stormwater to the sanitary system. I think what council was trying to do is to start and show the EPA that we're willing to do something that's politically unpalatable, because quite frankly, communities don't do it. They waste their time lighting everything, but what really is causing the problem. So that's what I think council was trying to do. And I don't know in the future if that'll be enough. In 15 years, you get 15 houses and you do some storage, maybe it's enough to get to a 10-year event, I don't know. But we're trying. And we have a consultant that does this all the time, Stantec. They specialize in water sewer data. There's another company that crunches that data. They know exactly where this water's coming from and the neighborhoods it's coming from. And they're proposing a fix. And the idea is, part of that fix was this ordinance, was to try to start making that difference. Because in 3 years, we do this for 3 years, we're gonna look at it and we're gonna put the meters back out and say, have we made a difference in these neighborhoods? Because there are houses selling in these neighborhoods, in those hotspot neighborhoods. So, there are a lot of them.
So do we have, we need to get numbers to say, how much do we have to, what is it gonna take for the EPA to say you guys are okay? and then we're okay, and then we budget, or we do, or we work over a certain period of time to then fix the other hot spots.
Let's make it clear, the EPA will not tell us, do this, do that, here's how, they won't do it.
They will not tell you how to fix it. They'll tell you, this is the goal,
Target.
this is your target, get there, and they,
We don't know that yet, because we have to submit that SSES next week.
that's why the ordinance, that's why we passed it, that's why we have to move on it and get the timeline under effect.
And believe me,
All those other things we had to do from the findings and orders, and that has to go next week.
Can't we
Now,
petition?
the ordinance is passed, we're gonna tell them, they may say no,
if we get 30 years, we would do it in a second,
and
but they're not gonna give us that kind of time.
Can't we petition our state representative, our governor, or somebody to help us with money? They found infrastructure money for lead pipes. They did it in Michigan.
They did. They also, because it's federal money, they could spend it on the private side, and I was in Michigan City where we actually did lead pipe, we had 11,000 lead pipes, and we received some money, it wasn't enough, but we have reached out, we have looked at OMB circulars, you've looked at every grant program that's available out there, and it just isn't as rich as people think it is. I mean, there's a lot of grants and aids, and there's also, when government gives you money like that, a lot of strings attached, right? So, it's not that we don't want the money. I'll tell you, it would be great for us to walk in and say, yeah, the meeting you had yesterday, it's all for naught. We got all the money for it. We'd be heroes, right? So, we'd love to do that. I wish that were the case. It doesn't mean that we've stopped looking. We are not stopped looking. We are not doing that.
What about the state Clean Water Act? Where they're raising money for, they're doing the islands by Walbridge Park.
H2O, Ohio H2O.
Yes.
Yeah, we applied. Got turned down. They're actually doing the island. That doesn't help us with sewage.
Yeah, they're doing multiple.
And also, there's a lot, I mean, this type of frustration is gonna even ramp up all across the state and all across this country with aging communities. This is gonna be a hot topic moving forward for many years to come. We have to try to save our water that we drink. There's no question about it. We have one of the greatest bodies of water here, and we're blessed with fresh water. Many people in the world don't have what we have around the Great Lakes. And yet, we are not treating it right. There's no question about it. It shouldn't be trapped in Maumee. It should be only rain in the drain. I mean, that's what it should be. And that should be our future. Not trapped. But let's move forward to something else, and something better. And that's what we have to try to do.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Quick question, Mr. McDonough, quick
Yes,
question.
yes.
You haven't answered this. Are we gonna, I can appreciate what you're saying. Right now, you're going with the people that are selling their homes. Okay.
Yes.
What about, we've also heard the rumors, and maybe it's true or false, that there are gonna be forced inspections, and they have to, everyone's gotta have an inspection within X amount of times, and if they don't, they're gonna be penalized.
Okay, yeah, I did answer that, but I will certainly reiterate that. No, there's no penalty for that. Right now, it's a conveyance ordinance. So, are you required to get an inspection? You're not selling your house? No.
Never?
No.
Never.
So never in the future.
If you're not selling your house?
Okay.
What's the amnesty program
But
about?
hold on, let me explain. So, it's a volunteer thing only if it's a proactive thing that you want to do.
When do you plan to change that? Right now, that's the fact, but when do you plan to change that?
Okay, so, well, right now, we're only trying, as we sit and we come up with a plan, we're only trying to do the least intrusive thing that would pass EPA standards. That's gonna be an ongoing evaluation for sure. As the data comes in and what we have moving forward, and they're asking that of us all the time. Where are you now? Where are you now? Where are you now? I mean, they're asking us, what, those meetings continue. I mean, they're in communication with us all the time. We're the watchdog, there's no doubt. I mean, so.
If the inspections do come, we're gonna have a little more, lead time before we're getting.
To fix.
The fix.
There's case by case basis. Obviously, that happens now in development here.
I'm sure you can appreciate that
Yes,
people
we
are
do.
looking at
No, I get it.
thousands of dollars to repair this, and they're saying that they don't have it. I'm 73 years old. I like to retire, and this is not how I want to spend my retirement money.
I would imagine you wouldn't.
No, I'd rather keep traveling and doing things, but
We understand there are special circumstances, and I've heard that throughout the process. At some point, we had to put a date of people had to do it, or people would wait to the end of whatever period you had to do it. So, we understand that you come up in the winter, you come in the fall, you can't even find it. Even if you had the money to do it, your contractor can't get to you until June 15th. If that's the case, when you verify it,
Cannot hear you.
What are you
if
saying?
it happens. I'm sorry, I apologize again.
It's not even about the mic.
All right. What I'm trying to say, what I'm actually saying is that there are special circumstances where we have to make exception. If somebody says to us, my contractor, my low bid is so backed up, and I know some of these contractors are backed up until next spring. We can't close in 90 days, and we have to sign an agreement, so we understand that's when it will happen. That's the kind of process we go through. Nobody's gonna sit there, kick your door down with jackboots on, and say, this is the 91st day and you didn't do it. I mean, the idea is every ordinance has penalties, every law has penalties if you don't comply. If you didn't, nobody would comply.
but that's only
Right.
for the houses that are for sale.
Only for sale.
Okay.
This ordinance has nothing to do except for voluntary for people who are not for sale.
Okay, we're gonna take a couple more, I've got some hands up, and I'll take those, and then we're gonna call it, we're available to talk one-on-one afterwards. Sir, to that.
Again, just not hearing proper mishearing the information. So I'm not selling my house, I live at home. I call you guys, I pay you, you come out, you do my inspection. Okay? It seems to be the information that's going around is now I have to fix what you've inspected. Is that true or false?
The inspection is the ticker, not the work. So if you do not want somebody to come and do an inspection because you don't want to do the work right now, don't call us.
That's my question. So,
He still didn't answer the question.
that starts the clock.
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does, it does. It does.
It does what?
It starts the clock. You have to get it. Don't get the inspection.
Here's what we do, and here's what's happening. If somebody says, I can do it in a year, you sign an agreement if you want a full inspection. But I went out on an inspection Saturday, then I put an addition on their house, and I said, I will walk through, and I'll look at the things that I know to be the case. I was surprised, there's an open home. Somebody had already put a sump pump in. I could see that sump pump was running. I could see where they wanted to put their addition, and I could see that all they had to do is tip the PVC pipe they had in a house that was built in the 1920s the other way through the foundation to the alley, and it was a simple fix. So you didn't have somebody run a scope out there, you didn't pay us an inspection. I just came out there and talked to them. The next neighbor wanted me to come. And that didn't kick in an inspection. They're gonna do an addition, they're gonna do work, that's fine. I also went out to another house yesterday, or Sunday morning, and met with a gentleman on Broadway. And that discussion, they were doing a patio in the back. And they wanted to make sure that they were good, but didn't want to click in that period, right? Didn't want to say, oh, gosh, I got 90 days to fix this now. But he explained it to me, and what he explained to me was easy to verify. He had PVC pipe out of his house, all the way through the backyard. His sump pump, he actually, years ago, installed a field where that sump pump discharged to. He did the right thing a long time ago. Yeah, leaf back. Those are very easy inspections. He has a little bit of section of clay pipe that'll probably have to line at some point, but I just came out and gave him some, right? That's not a full inspection. I'm going to do that anyway. You know, and it's not that, and I've got other staff that do that too, that actually know this stuff, right? I mean, I'm not going to tell you that I'm a licensed plumber, but I've been instructing for a long time. And you know, if you've been doing it long enough, you can pretty much tell when you walk in a basement if you're going to have a problem. Believe me, I've seen this for decades and decades. And I can walk into a house and say, yeah, you probably got a problem. And I'll tell them, You want an inspection? I had somebody text me today. She texted me today and said, I was at the meeting, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I'm tired of dumping stuff into the lake, I don't want anybody else to do it. Put me on the list for inspection, I'll do what I gotta do. And she's in a section of town, so you might have some issues. But she did it anyway. And we don't expect people to do that, but we will get people over the next 15 years doing this, because they want to know. Or they get a simple inspection, I walk through, and they say, and I've done 7 of those types of inspections in the last 2 weeks. On the weekend, because I do it on the weekends, because that's easier for me, and it's easier for when people go home from work. So, I'm still willing to do it.
Usually the simplest homes to fix are ones that aren't slabs, because they typically don't,
Oh, yeah.
they don't have anything else going on underneath their house.
How much
But,
did-
so, I'm gonna take a couple more, and then we'll be available to talk, if they're over here.
Mr. Mayor, Jim Trump's Legal Delaney. I've talked with several real estate brokers in the area. Asked them about what they anticipate the effect of this ordinance to be on real estate. And they uniformly said that they expect that this will drastically slow the rate of sales in Milwaukee. And that in the intermediate, it will actually depress prices. People are perhaps more reluctant to move to the city for fear that they will affect the traffic in their houses. Haven't you then implemented a system that funds a community improvement project that will decline and decrease the amount it brings in with each passing year?
I understand.
Say again.
Sure. If the real estate market slows,
Yes.
because people are reluctant to sell their houses
Right.
and having to pay a large sum of money, then fewer and fewer people will be selling their houses in Maumee, which means that fewer and fewer houses will be remediated under the program. So the longer it goes on, the fewer houses you will have in each time period who are actually remediated. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I get that. Spent a lot of time studying this subject, not a realtor. I think I have to be, not microeconomics. That is what I do. So, I look at this and I say, does one intervention affect the housing market? Depends, right? Housing markets are regional. We all know that. Do we recognize that happening? We see a slowing housing market in houses that are over $400,000 right now. Those are far different than if you're selling your house for $185,000. Because I know when yesterday I got 10 offers in the first day in Maumee. It doesn't sound like slowing down. Maybe it slowed down to 26 offers from out-of-town investors, maybe 3 months ago. But I think the point is here is that we can't rush to judgment whether or not a single intervention somehow undermines an entire market built on value, right? I could take it the other way too. I could say that because of the lack of intervention, people had artificial value they shouldn't have had because they had problems with their house. Much the same, if I have a brand new roof and I put it on 3 layers of roof, everybody looks up and says, that house worth $15,000 more. And somebody lifts up the shingle, realizes 4 layers, all the way down to 3-in-1 shingle that have been on there for 45 years, and realize that was a false value, right? So that works both ways. Microeconomics is not one way. And the reason it's not an exact science, it's a social science, economics is because it depends on human behavior. Right now, we still have houses still sell. People are still coming here. New families are still coming here. We recognize that because in the American Community Survey, our average age is dropping. Our average age is dropping because young families are moving here. That's what we see in the data. If we aren't going to look at the data and we want to assume just because I sell houses, and there are a lot of great realtors, a lot of questions, very smart people doing this. But we can't look at one variable. If I said to you, I looked out my window at City Hall, and I just got out there and I looked out and said, oh my gosh, the only kind of cars that drive down Conant Street are red Corvettes. Because I looked out there for 10 seconds and saw somebody in a dealership drive 10 brand new red Corvettes, and I assumed, oh my gosh, if my population and what I'm looking at is only that period of time. I'm gonna give a spurious answer that doesn't have any sense and any closeness to reality. So my point is, if you're looking, does anybody here believe that anything that happens in their life happens because of one thing? Really, seriously, nobody believes that. Any more than I believe the housing market is a victim of one action, or it's a benefit because of one action. We saw that, right? We've got, I mean, I want to make this very clear. How many people have millennial kids? Nobody.
Millennial kids.
Kids that are millennial.
I am a
Right?
millennial.
You're a millennial, okay. So, here's my point, for younger population. So, when I look at this, and I was really concerned about the housing market. I refinanced my house 5 years ago.
How come you don't need any more meetings?
2.78%. Because the state law doesn't require me, and I can't lose on the house.
You're putting all of these new regulations.
No.
There's no reason to do that.
Why would that?
There's no reason to do that, sir.
I'm sorry, but it was my
Well, understood.
opinion.
But I can guarantee I pay a lot of tax here, and that's where it goes. Because we don't operate this on property tax. So let me get back to the point. The point is, I was concerned because I thought when interest rates were below 3%, and I started going to 4 and 5, my kids have never seen anything other than a LIBOR 0% interest rate from the feds in their entire life. This has been going on for 30 years, and I thought, oh gosh, if it gets to 5%, the housing market's gonna crash, nobody will buy it then. We're at 6.5%, 7%, and people are still buying. Why is that? I don't know. But if I thought interest rates were the only reason that drove the housing market, I would be wrong. Clearly I'd be wrong, because people only paid over 5 to 6% in the last year for a house. That could happen. So
we're gonna wrap up, and I just wanna reiterate, I believe we have a lot to offer in Maumee, and it's just more than this. People come here, they're desiring to come here, they love our schools, they love our emergency services, they like what they're doing in our town. It's a desired place to live, and it's just a thought process that people need to make of their property, is if we're gonna invest in our city the way we have, are you willing to invest in your house or not? That's a decision that you will have to make. So, with that being said, we're gonna conclude. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We have some council people here, and we'll be available afterwards. Thank you.